Channel 4's Eyewitness News. This is breaking news.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Katie Moore. We are interrupting programming because we, of course, are watching Hurricane Ida as it approaches the Louisiana coast. Jefferson Parish officials are holding their first news conference, so let's take a listen to what they have to say.
Council Chairman, Councilman Scott Walker. I did speak to Councilman Ricky Template. He is actually on Grand Isle. Councilman for District 1, Marion Edwards, is in his district. He is tying up some last minute things in some meetings. We have Councilman from District 2, Dino Bonanno. Councilman from District 3, Byron Lee. Councilman from District 4, Dominic Impastato, and Councilwoman from District 5, Councilwoman Jennifer Van Ryken, as well as our Mayor of Gretna, Belinda Constant, and our Mayor of West Wego, Robert Billiard. So again, thank you all for being with us today. I know everybody is very, very busy. Today is a day that we should be spending making our preparations. So you should be canceling all of your other events and making preparations for this storm. All of our parish program has been suspended as of earlier today. All of our testing and vaccination sites stopped at noon. We will not have any activity this weekend, and our offices will be closed on Monday because we are completely in storm mode. I want to remind everyone, and what everyone is saying, do not focus on the center track. This is a major storm. It could flip at the last minute. We could be very vulnerable with just small degrees of change. So this is a major storm coming our way. Yesterday, I signed an emergency declaration so that we could be moving assets and pre-positioning some of our pumps. So that was done yesterday. So we will have a mandatory evacuation for those communities outside of the levee protection system. I've been on the phone with Mayor Cormedel and Mayor Kerner. So Grand Isle has been a mandatory evacuation as of 11 a.m. today, mandatory for Grand Isle, and also Lafitte, Lower Lafitte, Barataria, Crown Point, also under a mandatory evacuation. These folks are very vulnerable. They're outside of our levee protection system. They're very vulnerable to storm surge. So those are mandatory evacuation areas. If you are within the levee protection system, it is a voluntary evacuation. The first effects of this will be happening Saturday night. There is not a lot of time. Generally, where you are on Saturday night is where you have to hunker down and stay. So there is not a lot of time to do this. You need to be spending the day and coordinating with your family and making these decisions about what you're going to do for this storm if you're under a voluntary evacuation, okay? Obviously, you have to weigh the direct risk of the storm and where you're located with hurricane force winds, with the storm surge, heavy rainfall, widespread flooding. You also have to consider the secondary effects of a hurricane that happen that are not directly weather related, right? So electrical outages, if water is not available to you, if the stores are closed, the grocery stores, the drugstores are closed, all of those modern day amenities are not going to be available to you if you're somebody that vulnerable and needs to get out early. These are the considerations that you and your family should be weighing right now. If you are very vulnerable physically and you might need a doctor or medical community, remember, our first responders are an incredible group of people, but they stop when the winds get to a certain level. They cannot go out and provide those services until after the storm passes. Just be aware, and these are, of course, the considerations that you need to be. How vulnerable are you? If these services are not available to you, you have to weigh that into your decision making today, and you need to do it quickly. I'm going to give you an update on our public works, but we have our drainage and our Mitch and Mark here. But the good news for Jefferson Parish, we have 194 out of 195 pumps available. We are working very, very long shifts in our public works department, in our streets department, in our drainage department, catching, cleaning our basins, picking up debris, monitoring those canal levels, ensuring all the tanks are topped off, the vehicles, the pump stations. We're pre-positioned pumps already in our lower lying areas and ensuring obviously that all of our construction sites are secured. I have to give you a reminder that we are still very high with COVID. That is another layer that's on top of all of these preparations for this storm. Our hospitals that are high capacity. I've been to hospitals after a storm and it's flooded with people that fell off of ladders, have a tree branch in their eye, all of these kind of other injuries that that come after a storm. That is not the position we need to be right now. That is not the position that our medical community can handle right now. We have all got to be in a position of trying to help our medical community. They have their hands full dealing with COVID patients. We do not need to be able to give them any more, and we don't need any unnecessary injuries because of this storm. So please, I know if you decide to stay, and after the storm, people want their house back together immediately, please consider that. Be very, very careful. I would not want to be going to a hospital right now, and I don't think you do either. So let's just be very, very mindful of that, okay? So we know this drill, what we should be doing, clearing our catch basins in front of our house. We have good neighbors on every street that go up and down and clear those catch basins to give our drainage system, which is a very expensive system, very sophisticated system, the best possible way of moving water. So that's getting the debris out of the those catch basins. You should be taking in your garbage cans and securing all your outdoor furniture and your grills and anything that could be high projectiles in the wind, tying down all those items. Preparing for electrical outages. My friend just texted me, are we going to have garbage pickup tomorrow? Do I start throwing food away? Yes, we will have garbage pickup tomorrow, so I'm sure she's emptying her freezer. Obviously, we live with a lot of open canals that are very, very hazardous during flood events. So remind everyone, sometimes when it gets flooded, you don't know where the road ends and the open canal begins. It is a very, very dangerous situation. And remember, the road repair can be hidden by water as well. You can damage your car, okay? So we want to remind everyone to avoid driving, is to not cause a wake and cause property damage if you stay. And be very mindful of electricity and the dangers of that after a storm, all right? So secure your water if you're going to stay, your food, your medication, your flashlights, the first aid kits, the masks, all of those things, and start now talking to your family, communicating with your family, checking on vulnerable neighbors, checking on vulnerable relatives, monitor frequently the weather reports, and know what your evacuation route is, and have a second route as part of your plan. All right, some housekeeping events, as I've said. Garbage collection is going to occur tomorrow as scheduled, but all 4 Jefferson Parish drop-off sites and the residential drop-off site at the landfill are going to be closed on Sunday. Curbside and curbside garbage and recycling collection is also canceled on Monday, and there's going to be no makeup day. Again, I will repeat, our offices will be closed on Monday as well. We want to remind people, please do not put your bulky waste out on the curb. This is all dangerous during a storm. You just got to keep it and secure it until this storm is over. They will pose a risk and a hazard. We also don't need all of that garbage floating around in the streets, right? And then transit, at this time, we don't have any changes to our transit service. Our transit and our MITS buses, our medical buses are going to run as long as they can and as long as they're safe, and we will let you know if they start to close. But right now, all of that is going to operate as planned until and as long as weather permits. And we want to encourage everybody to stay updated. You can get our text alerts, JP Alert, to 888-777. For our Spanish-speaking citizens, JP Noticias to 888-777. We want everyone to be safe and be mindful and be prepared. And as I said, pay attention frequently to your news and to all of your elected officials. So with that, the next speaker I want to introduce up is our Sheriff of Jefferson Parish, Sheriff Joseph LaPinta.
Thank you, Madam President. I'm going to be brief. Spoke with both the Chief of Lafitte and Chief of Grand Isle, offering any assistance that we need for those areas. Jefferson Parish Sheriff's Office is always prepared, ready to continue to answer the call for service as long as we can. Give everybody that has the means and has the ability of whether or not they should evacuate. You know, if you have the ability to do so, get out of here. The reality of it is the less people that we have on the street, the less people calls for service that we have to deal with over the next few days. It makes it easier on the men and and women that are going to stay here put their lives in danger to be able to handle things. So if you can get out of here, you have the means to be able to do so, do so. Remind everybody the emergency and non-emergency number here in Jefferson Parish is 911. Any calls for service should go through a 911. Our dispatchers will be here to be able to answer any of those calls and provide services as best that we can. Sheriff's Office is going to be able to have many additional patrols out. If you plan on evacuating and leaving, be rest assured that not only do they do a good job on an everyday basis, but all my detectives that are normally handling detective issues, handling regular call, will be handling regular calls of service with additional patrols out in the street to make sure your property is safe if you leave it behind. I'm sure there'll be people in town, that have different problems. Call us. We certainly will be able to try to help as much as we can, but be prepared to hunker down and know that once the storm passes, stay in your house for an extra day. Give us the ability to clear the roadways of whether it's electrical lines or tree debris. Last storm last year, I saw several people out driving where trees were completely covering the road and they're driving at night. You can't see it, the lights are out, and we don't need the accidents for us to have to go respond to with the additional injuries. Stay in your house an extra day or so, especially at night. Give us the ability to clear off those roadways so we can get back to Jefferson Parish as normal, hopefully by the end of next week. Thank you.
Thank you, Sheriff. Our next speaker is our Director of Emergency Management, Joe Valiente.
Thank you, Madam President. I'm going to try to keep this as brief as possible. Currently, we're well underway as far as our preparations are concerned. We actually started 2 days ago, and actually we started work with the various departments, drainage, water, sewage, and streets a week ago as it related to this potential threat that was developing all week long. I just want to make mention of a couple things. The EOC is currently on a standby level. We're going to go full activation tomorrow at 7 p.m. One of the things we're doing a little bit differently for this storm, because of the COVID, we're monitoring the 13 parish nursing homes a little closely, and we're going to assist the local hospitals in terms of helping the local public with changing out their oxygen bottles. Sarah Babcock will address that in further detail when she speaks in a moment. Also, I want to mention that we're working closely with JPSO and the West Bank firefighters, and we've got search and rescue hot water vehicles that have already been pre-staged. So in the event this turned out to be a heavy water event, which it could between the surge and the lower Jefferson Parish and the heavy rainfall that's anticipated, we're expecting some flooding that's going to occur. I do have to circle back to what Sheriff Lapinto said. Do not leave your homes during a storm or right after. Look at what happened last week in Tennessee and Humphrey County. You had 17 inches of rain which dropped in that municipality in 16 hours that resulted in 27 fatalities. You do not want to be out on the street during or immediately after the storm passes. Give everything time to settle down again. Remember on the storm, looking at wind, storm surge, and power outages. Patrick Hambio is also from Energy is going to follow around on that. But just bear in mind how difficult it's going to be in Jefferson Parish on Monday if we lose the power grid completely. It is not going to be a pleasant place to be. So I just want to advise everyone to continue to monitor the local news stations, radio stations. When you're on social media, make sure that you're on a site that the information is vetted, and keep track of this storm every couple of hours so that you can make an informed decision, especially if it comes to the point where we have to ask for a mandatory evacuation. If it comes to that point, you have to be ready. Now, not then. One last point I want to make is that the longer a person waits to evacuate, the longer it's going to take them to get out of harm's way, because you're going to be running into a tremendous amount of traffic, and you don't want that to happen. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Joe. Thank you for that. I am sending my family away. So again, this is good advice that you're hearing. If you can get out, get out. It is not right now a mandatory evacuation for within the levee protection system, but I'm sending my family away because this is a big storm heading our way, and we have the ability to get out. So please, let's just not stay because it's inconvenient, okay? The Director of Public Works and the Director of Drainage, we have Mark Drews and Mitch Terrier.
Thank you, Madam President. Public Works departments are ready. We have an experienced staff that's diligently prepared for hurricane season. They capably handled Hurricane Zeta last year and its aftermath. We have a majority of our supervisors who have 20-plus years experience, so they've been through multiple storms. So as our most valuable asset, they are ready. When it comes to our water system, we have a major treatment plant on the East Bank and the West Bank. Both have safe rooms with the capability where the employees can actually run the plants from inside if necessary, so we will have water before, during, and after the storm. In addition, they have backup generators with a 5-day supply of diesel fuel, so we can withstand an extended energy outage. Similarly, our sewer treatment plants are capable of handling that outage as well, as they all have backup generators at all of our major plants, 4 on the West Bank, 1 on the East Bank, that have that 5-day supply of fuel. Our streets department will have pre-positioned vehicles, equipment, and manpower, so in the aftermath of the storm, they can immediately begin to clear the roadways of debris. In addition, they'll work in conjunction with our traffic engineering department. They have the capability to put barricades up as necessary to close off streets if we have flooding or if there's dangerous conditions. Similarly, our Parkways division has pre-positioned equipment so that they can immediately begin clearing trees from our down roadways, and they will work in concert with energy when those trees are tangled in power lines. Finally, drainage is always the hot topic when it comes to these type of storms. Unfortunately for us, Mitch Terrio, our drainage director, has been with the parish about 25 years, so he's managed multiple storm events and knows our drainage system like the back of our hand, back of his hand, and I'll turn it over to Mitch.
Thank you, Mark. As the parish president said, we have one pump out of service. It's a small pump in Lafitte and at the Goose Bayou pump station, small enough that we're able to replace that capacity with some portables that are installed out there. In addition to the permanent pumps, we've also installed 24 portable pumps. They're located in Lafitte and in Grand Isle. Our stations are going to be manned throughout the event, probably starting at noon tomorrow. We'll have someone in there 24 hours a day, and of course, the rain tonight and tomorrow, we certainly will be covering that as well. Should the storm become greater than a Category 3, the pump stations themselves are fortified and designed for the guys to be in there safely for up to a Category 3 storm. If it gets greater than that, we have 13 safe houses located throughout the parish, east and west, where the guys can move into. Those are designed for up to a Category 5 storm surge and an F5 tornado wind speed, about 250 miles an hour. So they're outfitted with food and water for days, so those guys will never be evacuated again. What we've been doing yesterday and today, and actually we do it every Monday, is run through all of our equipment, anything related to any piece of equipment that is needed to run a pump station, checking fuel levels, oil, other fluid levels, making sure that's all good to go. We've been using them a few times this week due to the rain, but we checked them again today, and so tomorrow when the guys get to the station at noon, I'm sure they'll be running through all of the systems once again. That's on the pump station side. On the drainage collection side of things, yesterday, today, tomorrow, and as long as we can on Sunday, our guys and gals have all converted themselves into catch basin cleaners. So we are checking canals, looking for any debris that needs to be removed. Multiple people, 2 other public works departments have converted their folks into catch basin cleaners as well. So I think we have in the neighborhood of 20 crews. Cleaning catch basins, mainly looking for debris on top of catch basins. We do have the Vector trucks out that are cleaning drain lines. And that'll again be going on all day tomorrow and as long as we can on Sunday. And as soon as the event passes, we'll be back out on the street as quickly as possible doing those same things. I think there's actually chances of rain again later next week, so we want to make sure that the streets are clear and catch basins, canals, all are open, because it doesn't look like we're going to get a long break. So that's about it. Ready to go. Hoping for the best.
Next, we have one of the newest members of our team, Chief Administrative Assistant Sarah Babcock.
Good afternoon. First, I just want to reiterate that all of our COVID-19 testing and vaccination sites at the Ilaria Center, Delta Playground, Bright Playground, and Bonneville Boat Launch have been closed as of noon today. Those samples will still be run, and you'll be able to collect the results online. Every hurricane is a threat to health and our life safety. And so while COVID-19 is still very much a part of our community, we need to take the threat of this hurricane seriously. So if you are asked to evacuate, you need to consider that before you consider the other ramifications of COVID. We do have evacuation and orders in a number of places, as the parish president mentioned. If you're inside the levee protection, I would also advise that you evacuate if you have serious medical conditions. You may not be able to get adequate care. We may have issues getting you back to dialysis after a storm, and you should expect to lose power for a number of days with this storm. So if you are at home on oxygen, on ventilators, internal feeding, other medical equipment, it is important that you go ahead and evacuate now. We've been in touch with all of our local healthcare facilities. We do have 2 nursing homes and 3 assisted living facilities that are currently in evacuation mode. They are having people evacuate today. For everyone else, we will continue to maintain contact with them as they shelter in place. If you have a loved one in a nursing home, you may want to consider whether or not you want to evacuate them on your own, and make sure you are up to date on those nursing home plans. All of our dialysis facilities are currently operational and trying to add in extra clients throughout today and tomorrow. If you are on dialysis and you missed an appointment this week, it is really critical that you get in to be dialyzed before this storm hits, because there may be a period of time without power or water that we have a delay in those services. We've also been in touch with our hospitals and EMS. As you know, our hospitals have been full for weeks now. EMS is extremely busy. We are asking everyone to stay out of our hospitals unless you have a life-threatening injury or illness. If today you are not feeling well, today is the day to call your primary care provider or seek care in an outpatient setting. You will not have access to those services over the weekend. We also want to make sure that if you lose power and you need oxygen, that you are not going to an emergency room or calling 911 for that purpose. After the storm, we will have oxygen distribution sites set up where you can come and get a tank or swap out old tanks. Please, again, do not go to the emergency room or call 911 just because you need oxygen. We will have distribution sites open post-storm. We are prepared to open shelters during the storm, and again, any storm this hurricane season, we will be using congregate shelters. Everyone will be required to wear masks. We will do daily temperature checks, and we have the ability to isolate people who are under COVID quarantine or COVID positive. Individuals who are homeless and need to seek shelter can call 504-736-6264. They need to leave a message and someone will call them back about transportation to a safe place to stay. Because we have such high rates of COVID-19, places that whether you're sheltering in congregate settings or staying in a hotel, or maybe you're just gonna go stay with friends and family, it is important that you remember our COVID restrictions. You want to wear masks. Even if you're staying with friends or family in the same household, you need to social distance as much as possible, and being fully vaccinated is the best way to protect yourself in these settings. So if you have the opportunity to go get a vaccine, it may not provide a lot of protection for this weekend, but it will for whatever we have to come this hurricane season. Thank you.
Thank you, Sarah. Next, from Entergy, we have Patrick Hamby to go over all of the preparations from Entergy.
Thank you very much. Patrick Handy on behalf of Entergy Louisiana. We have been monitoring this storm and actually preparing for it for multiple days now. We are wrapping up our pre-storm checklist, that is similar things that the parish has been doing, making sure our trucks and our equipment are fueled up and ready to go. We're moving equipment into lower lying areas that are prone to flood up to higher ground. We're installing flood protection in those areas to substations and other pieces of equipment that we cannot relocate as well. And we are also performing today, as we can, weather permitting, proactive reliability work to help harden the system just that last little bit before the storm comes in. That includes vegetation work as well. Specifically, we've been going down the feeders that serve the critical customers such as hospitals and nursing homes, the airport, so on and so forth, to make sure that there are no conditions that are there that we could easily take care of today ahead of the storm, and we're doing that. The caveat is no aerial work can be done if the winds are in excess of 30 miles an hour, so no buckets can be up in the air. We can't be using hot sticks or other equipment that has to go up in the air because the wind can blow it into the conductors and it could cause serious injury. So that is a restriction, a OSHA restriction. We are also working through a multitude of logistics required for this response. We've done it many, many times before. Nonetheless, it's a challenging effort with many, many steps. We're engaging our mutual aid resource process. That's the group of utilities around the broader region that shares resources when we have a disaster in one area versus another. We get our troops together and help each other out. So we've already engaged that. That includes a resource pool of thousands of extra potential employees, utility workers that is, to come help us with our restoration needs. We're also acquiring specialized equipment that would include rear alley machines, which you'll notice would be needed in areas like Old Metairie where you have rear alley service. You have to have smaller equipment to get back into those tight areas. We also are getting high water vehicles, swamp buggies, and helicopters as well. Something new that's been a trend for the last few years is we're engaging drone resources to help us with our damage assessment once the storm has passed too. As far as our plans go, we have everything under control. We have enacted our tried, tested plan. We're engaged, we're mobilized right now. But the most important thing to do right now is to have your plan for you and your family. As we mentioned, if you're here, or the parish president rather mentioned, if you're here tomorrow, late afternoon, you're pretty much here. So make sure that you have your water, your generator if you're going to use it, and your medicines and everything else in place. Or also, as it's been suggested, have an alternative plan to evacuate. Visit the EnergyStormCenter.com. We have tips on planning kits, what to bring with you if you do leave, the generator safety, which Chief Tibbetts will hit on here later, in our power restoration process. It has some helpful diagrams that can answer many questions. Get the Entergy app too. It has estimated restoration times available, so if you do leave or even if you stay home, you're informed on what the estimated restoration time is for your neighborhood, and then as the time goes on for your individual house. We are also available communication-wise on Facebook and Twitter for updates. Listen to your local leadership, heed the warnings. If evacuations are required, evacuate and get out. Follow those rules. Don't try to be brave and end up getting hurt or worse, costing lives. So I mentioned a few things about our plan, and I mentioned that the customers and our neighbors and friends and family need to prepare now. What I'll give you as far as power outages go is, and this is from a historical perspective, it's an average, it's an estimate, but based off of Katrina, Rita, Gustav, Ike, Isaac, and then last year we had the 3, Laura, Delta, and Zeta. If a Category 1 hurricane comes, and this is based off of history, it's an average, it's an estimate, but it's a good reference point to use when you're making your plans, if you're going to stay or not. For a Category 1, 90% of the customers will be restored in about 7 days. So that does mean there are outages that could be 7 days or longer. And for a Category 2, that number goes up to 10 days. For a Category 3, it's 14 days. For a Category 4, it's 21 days. And hopefully we never have to deal with a Category 5, but it's beyond 21 days. For a Category 3, please evacuate or make alternative plans with the generator. It goes without saying, but you can never say it enough. Stay away from down power lines. Don't try to guess if it's a Cox line, an AT&T line, or an Entergy line. Stay away, call 1-800-ENTERGY, report it, and we will be there to make sure that it gets fixed. It may take some time if it's a catastrophic event, so stay away from down lines. Now is the time to review and engage your plan. Keep your guard up, and please stay safe, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you, Patrick. Our next speaker is Kelly Chandler from the Southeast Louisiana Flood Protection Authority East.